back on They Call Me Coach with Coach Tab Baldwin. Now we're gonna take a look, Coach. We asked our followers on Twitter to give us their top 5 names who are not in Gilas and perhaps not even in Talk and Text that they feel should be at least considered for the next Gilas iteration.
Okay.
And as you know, we got a lot of comments, and we're just gonna read some of you here. They've got so many names. Ryan Songalia says, Calvin, Mark Barroca, Arwin, and then we have others still. Miko Espiritu at Mix Espiritu says, Abueva. Well, people have Pringle, Rosario, Bello, Barroca, and I actually tweeted that Pringle is not eligible, unfortunately, as well as others. Paul's Blitz says, I'd like to see Slaughter, Marshall, Ray Parks, Romeo, and Barroca. And still we have, who's this? Jestone Bigata, Abueva, Santos, Lassiter, Kevin Alas, Barroca. Those are the names that he has. So we've got a lot of suggestions and people wanting to see a lot of their idols or their favorite players, like here. But what we did was we collated all of the names, and we basically were able to put them in, of course, the 5 positions.
Sure.
And I don't want to put you in a spot, but
Yes,
I want to
you
put
do.
you also in a spot. But I think we're going to have to take a look at from the names that we got on Twitter per position, and we're going to do two names, the 2 most common names per position, and the first being for point guard, JV Casio and Mark Barroca. And I just want to ask your thoughts and comments on each player. We're not here to ask you who's gonna be in or who you have in mind. So let's start with JV Casio. He took Alaska to the finals. He had a great final series. Your thoughts on and you played him when you were with Jordan. You played against him.
Yes.
Thoughts on JV?
I know JV really well, as a player. And JV actually suits my style of coaching quite well. He's a very heady player. I think he's a guy that performs in clutch situations. He runs offenses. He gives good leadership on the floor. These are all qualities I really admire, and they're strong qualities of JV. Again, size is a challenge for JV, as it is for a lot of guys, but he has a little bit of that X factor that I like in a point guard. And again, the leadership is very important to me. What he might lack that Mark presents, Mark is a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more athletic. He can just create havoc for a defense because of his speed, his confidence, his shooting ability. JV's a little bit slower, and also the other thing I like about Mark is his defensive pressure. And I'm a sucker for a point guard who will go up the floor. And
well, to those who don't know, on our team, the job of putting our pressure defense from backcourt, our press and our traps, falls on Coach Tab's shoulder. That's one of the jobs that he did for us when he was on the staff with me at Gilas. So you really like the ability of Mark Barroca to put pressure on the opposing point guard.
I do, and these 2 guys, there's no surprise that the fans have asked for them to be there, that you've highlighted them, because these 2 guys certainly are guys that will be strongly considered, when it comes time to name a pool. As long as they're healthy, both of these guys are proven performers in Gilas as well as in the PBA.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing about these 2 guys. They've been there.
That's right.
They've been there. They know the pace, the rhythm. We always talk about that. There's a rhythm to international competition, which is so different from the NBL or the PBA or any other league.
Absolutely, and it's an important point for newcomers to a team that they have to step up to that. And as a coach, somebody's going to have to twist my arm pretty hard to put too many newcomers in the team. But I think not only do we have Gilas 2.0, but we also have Gilas 1.0. We have these guys like Mark and JV who have international experience, but weren't available, for the 2.0 version of Gilas, but you know, now they should be, and so I think they'll be strongly considered.
Not gonna. Oh, it's good that you don't have much hair because you're gonna lose a lot. You don't have any hair to lose with those choices. Next, shooting guard. Of course, two names that have come up, and I think rightly so. James Yap and Marshall Lassiter. Let's start with James Yap.
Well, James is, you know, he's an icon here in Filipino basketball. He's relatively new to me. You know, I need to see him a lot more. But again, you know, the thing I like most about James is he seems unflappable in every situation.
Correct. Yep.
You know, he just plays the game. He plays to his strengths. He's a scorer, which is something you want in the two-guard position. You know, he can attack the rim. He's not the most consistent perimeter shooter, but when he gets hot, he's extremely dangerous because his belief goes through the roof. And he's the guy that he's as unpredictable to the coach as he is to the defense. So, you know, only James knows what he's going to do. And that can be a coach's nightmare, but it can also be a great boon for the team. You know,
he has the ability to shoot you back into a game,
correct,
or to score you back into a game. How about Marshall? What are your thoughts? You've played against Marshall. So
pure shooter,
coached,
you know, pure shooter, but a guy who can do other things on the floor. But as a coach, I like Marcio because it allows me to do things to get him open, because that's really, as a coach, what I want to do. I want to get preferred scoring options open as much as possible, and Marcio he's consistent. When he gets open and shoots the ball, it's going in. But the other thing is Marcio plays at that defensive end.
I know.
He's a tough competitor in defense. He works extremely hard. He has good size for the international game, and you know,
had him guarding Rashim, right, when we were with Raiko, and you had Rashim and Jordan,
And he can handle those kinds of assignments because he's a competitor. You know, he takes the defensive end of the floor very seriously. But great comparison, and you know, two very high-profile guards, and both guys with a lot of experience.
And I don't know if were you thinking that you're going to have two guards, three guards, three shooting guards in the final lineup, or you haven't gotten to that place yet?
Well, now you're digging. you're really digging now, Chot. And you know, I've kind of conventionally gone with 3-point guards, 5 bigs, and you know that leaves you 4 wings, four wing players. But with the Philippines, we might have to rethink that, especially for Asia.
I agree. Yes.
Because we're so deep in point guards, and some of our points can slide over,
2 guards,
you know, into the 2-guard position. And in Asia, size won't necessarily be such a premium. So it's something that I've got to think more about. But the 3, 4, 5 alignment, and we're fairly light in big men, so we may not be able to get 5 quality guys there, you know, internationally. So this is something that I'll be thinking about and playing with a bit.
Well, you know, that's a good point, because people normally will think that we want to get as much size as we can, but we've talked about that, you know, and we can't. There's no way we're going to be bigger than Iran or China or Jordan or even Korea, for that matter. So, you know, maybe we just have a few of those bigs to match up, but then we beat them with everything else, our skill and our speed.
Correct, and I mean, you know, that's what we have to emphasize. Even if we can get bigger,
correct,
we still are always going to be a speed team.
Yeah.
So we can't have bigs that are going to slow us down. And you know, this was where I thought Junmar was a revelation in Spain. Is he played at a pretty good tempo. He ran the floor for us. You know,
he was able to play our pace. Yeah.
And you know, that showed a lot of promise for the future. I know I keep going back to Junmar, but you know, he is a key factor in style of play as well as his talent. But the big thing, Chot, in selecting a team is that we select the best team.
Yeah, always.
You know,
it's not the best players.
It's not the best players. And you know, anybody that falls into that trap probably doesn't keep their job very long, because you know, where talent can win you a game, cohesion will win you a tournament.
Yeah.
Because you have to do it day after day after day, and you have to have a bunch of guys that will stick together, that want to stick together, and will play for each other.
Well, speaking of guys who've been there and guys with size and skill and speed, how about on the wing spot? Chris Lutz and Matt Ganuelas Rosser.
Well, Chris would probably get the edge right now
Yeah.
because of his experience. Again,
yeah.
you know, and they're very similar players. Both of them slashers. Both of them can put the ball on the floor, attack the rim. I think Matt has a, you know, a brilliant future. But Matt has to improve his perimeter shooting. He's a defensive stopper for us.
Yep.
But again, I think when Matt steps up to that international level, which I'm sure he will one day,
Yeah.
he's going to find that the physicality of the game at that level, which is different than the PBA physicality.
Very different, yeah.
Don't let anybody tell you that, you know, PBA isn't physical. It's very physical, but it's a different kind of physicality in the international game, and with much bigger men. That Matt is going to have to learn to play in that environment, whereas I think Chris right now probably has shown
Understands it already, yeah.
and can play at that level.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you touched on that physicality thing. Can you talk us a little bit more about it? Because it's important that people here understand it, because they say we shouldn't have a problem with FIBA physicality because it's so physical here in the PBA. So can you please explain a little bit more the difference in the physicality of FIBA and PBA?
Well, you know, again, I could throw this question right back to you because you really had to wrestle with it.
Yep.
I mean, how many hours did we spend with the GILAS team trying to teach them the difference in the physicality? You know, in the PBA, we really, in GILAS, we are really not helped by the style of play in the PBA, the refereeing and what is allowed in physicality. It may be entertaining, and we may like it as fans, but when we go to FIBA, it's an entirely different animal.
We have to relearn a lot of those things.
We have to relearn, particularly about the use of the hands. And, you know, in FIBA, when a player has the ball, it's not entirely hands-off, but you can't put two hands on a guy. You certainly can't grab him and restrain him in any way. And in the PBA, you can. It's as simple as that. You are allowed to. And when you, over the course of a year and, you know, 10 months, 9-10 months of basketball in the PBA, habits are developed.
Yeah.
And breaking those habits takes time. It takes a lot of work. And some players, you know, even after a lot of concentrated work, still struggle with that.
So if holding and grappling is not allowed in FIBA, how is their physicality? What is the kind of physicality that's in FIBA?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot more banging off the ball. There's a lot of discussion about beating a man to a spot, and you know, two players cutting to the same spot. There's going to be collision.
Collision, yeah.
You know, there's going to be contact at that point, and the referees are going to allow that unless at that moment somebody is seen to use their hands and arms in a you know, disadvantageous way. But as long as two guys are using their physical size and strength to gain control of a spot, they'll be allowed to do that.
And I think just very naturally, because the players in the FIBA, whether it's Asia or Europe, are so much bigger than the Filipinos, that there is a lot more contact, because just it's a size factor.
Exactly, and you know, that will factor into selections. You know, heavier guys, if and when we qualify for Rio, I'll just say when we qualify for Rio, we may have to look at the selection not entirely differently, but you know, other people may come into the frame that mix, you know, maybe we don't think are so important for Asia.
Agree. Well, we've had a great discussion on 3 positions so far. After the break, we'll come back and talk about the 4 and the 5 spots. It's gonna be really interesting.